All right, good morning. Let's see if this works this time. I just did this and apparently didn't push record. And so I'm going to wait and see if this works. If you're out there, say hello. Doesn't seem to be anyone out there. Oh, someone's watching. So, okay. So this is work. Is this working? Maybe. So, I don't know. Technology. So, anyway, we are going to continue our journey through Psalms. And so yesterday we looked at the first 4 verses from Psalm chapter 2. And mainly it was talking about the rebellion of David, who's the king, was speaking about the rebellion. Why do all these leaders and all these people rise up against me? And we talked about how in all of our hearts we can choose to rebel against God, that we have this tendency in our heart to rebel against Him. And so today we're going to look at the rest of the psalm and ask the question, how does God deal with the rebellion of man? How does He deal with our rebellion in our hearts? So it says this, verse 5, chapter 2. It says, He rebukes them in His anger, and He terrifies them in His wrath, saying, I have installed my king on Zion, my holy mountain. I will proclaim the Lord's decree. He said to me, You are my son, today I have become your father. Ask me, and I will make the nations your inheritance, the ends of the earth your possession. You will break them with a rod of iron, and you will dash them to pieces like pottery. Therefore, you kings, be wise, be warned, you rulers of the earth. Serve the Lord with fear and celebrate His rule with trembling. Kiss His Son, or He will be angry, and your way will lead to your destruction. For His wrath can flare up in a moment, but blessed are all who take refuge in Him. And so yesterday we talked about the idea that human beings have the tendency simply to rebel against God, that even in our own hearts we have that tendency to rebel. And it raises the question of how does God deal with the rebellion of the world? How does He deal with the rebellion of our own hearts? And in this passage, I believe it gives the answer. The way that God deals with the rebellion of humanity is He placed His Son on the throne. That He sent His Son and placed His Son on the throne to rule and to reign over us. Now, how did Jesus rule? Jesus didn't come ruling like a worldly king. He didn't come to rule over and to lord over, but Jesus came and He ruled by serving us, by sacrificing His heart, His life for us. And so, how do we deal with the rebellion of our own hearts? How do we deal with the rebellion around us? How do we deal with the chaos of the world? And the way that we deal with it is we have to surrender and submit our hearts to Jesus' reign. That when we direct our hearts to Jesus, that we can find refuge in Him. That we can find a safe place to be with Him. And so we first have to simply direct our hearts to Him, surrendering our heart, submitting our heart to Jesus, and trying to learn how to line our own will up with the will of the Father. And so what does that practically look like? I think the way that it practically looks like is, at least in my own life, is to give you an example. I love to be right. I love to argue with people, and I love to be right about stuff. And one of the things I've learned is that I can be right about stuff, but usually in the midst of that, I will hurt someone's feelings. And so one of the ways I've learned to direct the rebellion of my own heart going against the will of God is learning that I don't have to be right when it comes to arguing with people about things. That's just one example. You know, maybe someone did something wrong to you, and and you want justice now. You withhold forgiveness, and in doing that we rebel against God, because God calls us to forgive. And so we have to submit our hearts and forgive someone, set them free. Sometimes we have to let go of control to allow Jesus to rule and to reign. And so that when we surrender our own individual heart, we can take refuge in God. And that even that place, we can find a security that we normally would not experience, because there's chaos all around us. There are the other choices that other people make that then affect us. And so someone makes a bad decision and then it affects us. How do I find refuge in a world like that? We find refuge in a world like that by knowing that Jesus is on the throne, that Jesus is the King, and that we can have peace and security knowing that one day He's going to make all things new. He's going to make things right again. And so I believe that's what the psalm is speaking of, that He has placed His Son on the throne, that we have to kiss. It says, kiss His Son or He will be angry and our ways will lead us to destruction. We have to direct our hearts to Jesus. And when we do that, we can find refuge in a chaotic world, in a world bent towards rebellion. Even in our own hearts bent towards rebellion, we can find peace and love and joy and hope, because we can take refuge in Him. So hopefully that makes sense. May that be good news to you today, that you can find hope and peace and refuge in God. And hopefully this video worked, because I filmed it once already and it didn't work earlier. So blessings to you guys. Hope you have a great day. Love you. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.